So when we try to expand and grow, if it doesn't feel familiar to us, our whole system is gonna say this is dangerous, don't go there. So the more safety you can feel in yourself, this is where hypnosis come in. I always put people to imagine they're already there, getting into experience like it would be happening now. Then you make that new thing familiar, and then it becomes safe.
I had to kind of sit with the fact that everything can change at any time or anything can just disappear. I got some kind of spiritual awakening. I was so present in my life. I understood that nothing's lasting forever, so I have to live every moment to the fullest.
So how does one know if they love themselves?
Self-worth comes from.
Hi, and welcome to the second episode of My Way podcast. I am so excited for today's guest, the one and only Marina Lavenius. She's a well-known hypnotherapist in Helsinki with her own studio where she does hypnotherapy, life coaching, tarot readings, and so on. What I think will resonate the most is also her story. So for today's episode, we'll be uncovering how she got into the hypnotherapy, what's her life story, and how hypnotherapy might be that missing piece of puzzle for your own success and going after your own dreams. So you grew up here in Finland?
Yeah, I grew up in Finland in Helsinki. I've lived here basically all my life except for 1.5 years that I studied in Stockholm. But I grown up here, and my dad was Swedish speaking and my mom was Finnish speaking, so I went to school and kindergarten always in Swedish. So it's kind of felt a bit different than just the basic Finnish culture in a way. But yeah, grown up here and basically always lived here, and I liked it here. So I didn't kind of want to go somewhere else, just maybe to study for a while and of course travel, but Helsinki always felt like home.
And then in Stockholm you were when?
It was 2010, I think. I was quite young when I started. My first career is makeup, so I was a makeup artist, and I did that for a while after I graduated from normal school. And then I always wanted to, or I have the thought in the back of my mind that I also want to try university. So then I was doing the makeup, and then I thought that I want to study something that kind of goes with the makeup. So then I went to study fashion in Stockholm to the university, and it was just kind of to try to live somewhere else also than Finland, and also just to see if university was something that I wanted to do. And then I did 1 year there, and then the makeup work and everything got so big that I always flew back to Finland and Helsinki to do makeup jobs, and then I studied in Stockholm, so it was quite a lot. So then I decided to just continue with the makeup because it was my passion back then. So
Was it an easy decision by then?
I think so, yeah, because I really loved it. It was like something that I really had the kind of passion and the desire to do. So kind of the studying in the fashion studying the fashion was something that was interesting, but I didn't have that kind of, passion and drive to kind of go forward and maybe start to, I don't know even what I would have worked in with that degree in a way. So then I just did a 1 year, and then I quit, and then I came back to Helsinki.
That's interesting, because that means that already then you did follow your kind of inner guidance.
I've always done that.
Okay.
It's kind of, I don't think I've noticed or known that I'm doing it, but I've always had this inner kind of guidance. And it's weird because of course I was working summer jobs and all kind of different jobs before the makeup as well, and it always felt like I remember I felt like I can't do this, that there's something in me that just doesn't feel right. And I told my mom, was working in a shoe shop for women's shoes, and always I worked with fashion. I always loved clothes and shoes and beautiful things, but I was like, I just can't do this 9 to 5 thing that people do, that I don't understand. I always got really depressed, and I thought that there is just something really deeply wrong with me for being this way. And my mom was always like, just go to work. Everyone goes to work, like just do it. But there was just something in me that I just kind of, it wasn't for me. It might sound like I'm a princess but it's not that. It was just something deeper that told me that not to do this. And then when I found the makeup, I did modeling for a while when I was younger, and then I kind of got to know makeup artists and makeup, and I thought that this is actually fun and this could be a good like career option. And then one makeup artist said that she's a teacher at a school and I can come and try it out if I want to. And then I went there and I was like, this feels fun. And I felt like being an entrepreneur and having my own freedom and my own way to kind of build my life was something that felt so aligned for me. So then I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. And then I was 20 or 19 when I put my first toiminimi or like company that I started to work as an entrepreneur. So after that, it's always been like entrepreneurship for me.
But that's amazing. You basically already from that age have always just made your own, own path.
Yes.
But so how old were you when you understood that makeup is your passion?
What could I be, 19, I guess? Because it was probably 17 to 19 that I was doing modeling like on and off just to basically get paid. It wasn't something that I was like, wow, this is the best thing in the world, but it was something that I did. I was tall and I was young, so it was easy kind of to do easy modeling jobs, and it was well paid. And then I always loved fashion, so that was something I always read to a bunch of fashion magazine, and I loved like to watch beauty contests when I was small and stuff like this. So it was always something that was there, and I liked like beautiful things and fashion and clothes and everything a lot. So that was something that I was really always liking. So then I thought, why not make a career out of it? So then when the makeup artistry kind of came up and I was at the set, actually I was modeling myself, and I was like, through makeup I can be a part of this world.
But this passion for makeup and art and beauty and fashion industry, was it something that someone in your family also had, or?
No, I don't think anyone in our family was like that drawn to fashion, but I always, since I was small, I always loved to pick my clothes for school and stuff like that. So yeah, it was something always that was there.
So that means that you graduated from high school at 18 or 19?
I think I was 18 back then, yeah.
Okay, and then for a year you were modeling until
Yeah,
you started.
it was actually I did the modeling because I was studying to go to Hanken, which is like this, what is it called in English? It's like economics school. And yeah, the first year I started to go to Hanken, and then I got to Vaasa, I think, but I didn't want to go to a really small town. That was already in me that I didn't want to do that. And I didn't get into Helsinki. There was like a couple of points missing, so I did the modeling just on the side when I was studying and trying to get into school. But then when I was trying the next year to study for the exam, I was like, something is missing here, that I'm doing this just because everyone else is doing this, or my mom says it's a good thing to do, or stuff like this. So then I just decided to quit and start to do the makeup, and that actually made me really happy. But my mom she was like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna start to do makeup instead? I was like, yeah. And then I got into school, and then there was the makeup artist who had been doing the makeup at me on the shoot, was there as a teacher, and she told me when I graduated that I could be her assistant. So then through her and through the school and everything, I got into doing magazines and shoots and fashion quite fast. So it just kind of started quite quickly and quite like organically. It just grew into a really like big career.
Yes, I saw your I was scrolling through your Instagram to understand like what's been the story and do a bit of a background check.
Yeah, that's good.
And yes, you were working with so many great magazines, so many different shoots, and also, as I understood, also some international shoots.
Yeah.
So it must have felt really good, and especially at that age as well, because you've done a very brave step. I think nowadays there's a lot more variety and freedom for people to choose non-conventional paths, but if we look back in the day, I feel like it was
it was
really brave step.
It was actually brave because especially in those Finnish Swedish like circles, people were laughing at me. They were, when I was telling them that I'm not actually at university, I'm studying makeup and doing makeup. They were like, yeah, but what's your real job? Like, so I always had to explain myself and kind of not being taken seriously, and kind of, yeah, it was always like I wasn't really understood or even appreciated in what I did. So that was something back then, but then it changed quite fast, because then people also grew up, so they became more mature. But also, I think being a makeup artist and the fashion scene and everything, it got more kind of popular in a way, so it got more respected. So then after a while, it was more okay. But yeah, in the beginning, it was something really different, because no one in my like friends group or stuff like that did the same thing. They just followed kind of the traditional path, what you do after school. So it was brave back then, but I don't think I even thought about it in a way that it's brave. It was just something that I did because it was calling me. Felt like it's my way of doing and living. And I always have this small rebel side inside of me. Mm-hmm. So I also enjoyed it in a way to not being doing the same thing, that everyone else does, that I'm doing my own thing. So that was fun.
Now I'm just thinking, you're 20 years old, well, 21, 22 probably at that time, and you're in this fashion world. It's getting more and more popular to actually be in that scene, and it's very busy. There's a lot of projects, and you're very young for that sort of a environment. How did you maneuver that?
I actually don't know. What I remember is I always had this weird belief inside of me that I can do anything, in a way, which is really weird, because I don't think I got that from my family or anyone. But I had this really, really strong belief in myself that I can handle, like, whatever comes in a shoot or whatever, I can handle it. And I think that kind of carried me through those years. But it was difficult because I was so young, so I always felt that people didn't really take me seriously. And there was like stylists and maybe photographers and stuff like that who, not all, there are lovely people there, but of course I could sense that I wasn't, not on the same level, but of course I'm 19 or 20 or whatever and doing these big things in a way. So it always felt like I wasn't the underdog, but I could sense that I was younger. So people kind of look at you in a different way, or not treat you in a different way, but you can sense that. But that in the fashion scene, I don't think age is anymore such a big deal, because there is really talented people that are really young nowadays, and you don't need to study. Basically, if you're talented, you have the talent in you, and you don't need to study to basically prove yourself in a way. It's more what you do that counts. So I think that after a while, when I've been working for a couple of years, people already knew me and what I do, and who I am and how I am. Then it wasn't that big deal anymore. But in the beginning, it felt like it was, of course, because I was really, really, really young. So it was exciting, but of course I was afraid as well. But then I also got a lot of confidence in doing well, and being able to have everything running that well when I was so young. So,
did you have that inner drive to also prove to them? Yes.
Yes, and also because everyone was kind of questioning what am I doing, and what is this thing. So I had this really strong drive in me to prove that I can do it this way as well. That I don't need to go the traditional way to be successful or to be accepted or yeah.
Now knowing what you know, when you look back at that, where do you think it came from? Was it a positive or a toxic trait that it?
Well, back then there is many aspects to it. There is a lot of toxic traits in that I can probably come to later.
Yeah.
But then there is also this young me who doesn't know anything about anything. So she doesn't know to be nervous about stuff, or she doesn't know to to think about bad things or what can go wrong or how you should be or behave or whatever. I just did, you know. I was young and I was kind of carefree and the world was open and I could kind of, yeah, you have this belief that you can do anything and be anything. So I think it was more just this like innocence of the youth in a way that also helped a lot.
The youth maximalism.
Yeah, and you don't know what can go wrong, so you don't expect it to go wrong. So it's I hope I would get that back, because when you get older, you know what can go wrong, and then you start to be like, oh no.
So true with everything, even like with the roller coasters, right? As
Yes.
well. I feel like as kids we can go no matter where, but the older we get,
Yes.
the more cautious we become.
Exactly, yeah. And everything is, you know, when you're young, everything is always new and exciting and stuff like that. So also that gives you that drive to try new things and, you know, experience stuff. So yeah, it was exciting in many ways. Also scary.
But that's part of the process.
Exactly.
So now fast forward, you're 28
Yeah.
and a lot of changes happen in your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot happening. Oh my gosh. I moved back from Stockholm, and then I was doing the makeup, and I was kind of on the peak of my career. I was the head makeup artist of MaxFactor at the time, and then I was also doing my own, like the makeup, freelance makeup on the side. So it was a lot, and I was loving it, but then I also have started to feel this emptiness inside of me, that it wasn't really giving me that drive and that passion and that fulfillment that it did in the beginning. And I think also one big thing that had changed there was that 2013, my dad died quite unexpectedly. He got a heart attack. And after that, my values changed like drastically. They changed a lot because, of course, it was such a big event in my life that I had to kind of sit with the fact that everything can change at any time, or anything can just vanish, or anything can disappear at any time. So it was kind of there where I got some kind of spiritual awakening, because I was so present in my life, because I understood that nothing's lasting forever, so I have to live every moment to the fullest. So it was kind of a big ego death for me in a way, because so many things changed, and also, of course, I lost my dad. It was a big thing, and then also I had a hard time, like, how do I handle the grief, like, in a way. I didn't have enough tools, even if I went to therapy and everything, but it kind of wasn't enough. So I just started working, and I worked like a maniac. Like, I just took on more and more work to kind of distract myself from the sadness and the grief and what happened, so I didn't have to kind of face it. So at the end, I don't think I was aware of it, but it was kind of a way to escape from facing like the sadness and the grief.
Did you work the same way also before?
Yes, I did work a lot, but at the end, because I was doing the MaxFactor and my own thing, it was like I had doubled my work in 1 year. It was a lot. So I didn't realize that I was slowly like going towards burnout. But there has always been a lot of stress in that field, and like long working days, and you know, yeah, you have to be like, you know, on top of your game all the time, because you know the competition is quite strong. So yeah.
So okay, so then there was like your father's death, and that was one of the ways you were dealing with the grief.
Yes.
Then there was this competition, additional aspect that made you work even more. Was there any kind of goal that you were going towards?
Well, that was the thing, because this MaxFactor thing was something that I was like striving for, and I wanted to get there, because it was a unique position to be in Finland, to get a position as a head makeup artist for like a makeup brand, because there are not a lot of those. And then I didn't want to go to, I worked in Stockholm at fashion weeks and stuff like that, but I knew that I didn't want to go to London or continue to Paris or anything, that it wasn't for me, because I already then knew that the high pace and the stress, it's not for me because I'm so sensitive, that already what I'm going through now is enough. And I always felt some kind of inner knowing that Helsinki is where I'm supposed to be, which is weird. Also, just to see how far I can go in Finland and stuff like that. And then I basically did what you could do here in a way. So then it started to quite get weird in a way, because weird in that way that I wasn't that motivated anymore. And I also asked myself that, okay, I'm good here, but what's next? And the what's next would have required for me to go abroad, and I didn't want that. So I kind of got stuck in a weird place where I didn't really know what to do anymore. So it got kind of like a flat line, and yeah, so it was exactly at that point when I started to feel like, I don't know if this is for me anymore.
And that was the age of 28?
28, yeah.
Okay, so what happens then?
Well, then I was doing the MaxFactor, and then I slowly started to get panic attacks. And I got a huge one when I was doing a presentation from, it was currently products for autumn or spring or something like this. What I had been doing for many times before, but suddenly it just kind of stopped and I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just like I hit a wall.
So how does it work with panic attacks? Because I have heard that people experience it differently.
Yeah.
What way did you experience it?
Well, for me it was, I before that I already felt that I couldn't sleep as I slept before, and then that I was all the time really tired, and didn't have the same energy to exercise and stuff like this. So something was happening, but I just thought that, okay, this is normal. It comes so slowly that you can't really recognize that, okay, it's happening now. It's something that you can slowly get used to. But the panic attack for me was more like, it just went totally blank in my mind. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything, and I was standing there in front of the crowd trying to do this presentation. I was like, what is happening? And I just had to walk out of the room because there was something in me, just like, I got this fight or fight response that I just had to leave. And it probably looked like that I got sick or something, but I just couldn't walk back to the room anymore. And I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And it's one of the worst things that had happened to me, because I really felt like I was dying. It was so bad. And then I'm happy that I had my colleagues at MaxFactor there, and they could, finish the whole presentation and everything.
Okay, so
but
you weren't
basically,
alone.
It was like I hit a wall, and then after that, it started to always kind of try to come the panic attack when I was doing makeup, or I was going to present something, or doing this, anything that had to do with the makeup. So I basically had to stop, and then I got signed to go for a sick leave, and I took a sick leave for, I don't remember, was it a month or two, and tried to recover, but it just didn't help. It just felt like it got worse, and then I couldn't do anything else than just surrender.
So you got the sick leave on the burnout. What was that the reason?
Well, in the beginning it was really difficult for me to even understand what is happening. It was so confusing, and even the doctors and everyone that I was seeing I went to so many specialists and everything. Many thought that it's like a thyroid issue. Some said it's anxiety. Some said it's burnout. So no one really knew kind of what it was, and I didn't even recognize what it was myself because it was new, of course. And I, who always been able to do everything and achieve anything, I was like, this can't be me. This is not happening to me. Like, this is not who I am. So it was like a huge cognitive dissonance for me, that going on.
That you want one, but you can't.
Yeah, but then of course, because it took months and months and I just couldn't go back to work. So first I think they wrote that it's just anxiety, but then I started to realize that this is not anxiety, or this is not thyroid. This is actually me just being super tired with everything that has happened, the work and my dad and everything. So then I just had to kind of accept the fact that it's burnout. But it took a long time for me to accept it. It was like many, many months before I even could look at the fact that this is me just being tired and nothing else.
Yeah, because it's also, as you mentioned, the ego death, right?
Yeah.
You're so used to going and achieving and fast pace, and then suddenly...
Yes, And that was like that's the biggest ego that I've ever had, because it was like I had attached my identity so closely with achieving and doing and being good and effective and strong. So then when I was nothing of that, I was like, who am I? And it was super difficult. It was like, yeah, that's why it took so long to accept as well, because I was like no one after that.
So when you look at it with those eyes back in the day,
Yeah.
when that was happening, how did you view it? Like, you didn't know who you are,
Yeah.
but did it also show as weakness for you? Or?
Yes, of course. I hated like the whole situation, and I was like really hard on myself that how could this happen to me, and also depressed, and really I felt like ashamed. That was basically the biggest feeling that I felt. Like I was so ashamed that how could I, like, unsuccessful, or what is it called, like a failure, even if it wasn't that, but at the time it felt like how could I fail this badly.
Yeah, I just think that this part can resonate with so many people, because even nowadays I feel like our identity is so much tied to work, and so many times we put work as our main thing when we even introduce ourselves.
Exactly.
That's what we say,
Yeah.
right? Hi, my name is that and that. This is
what
what
do
I
you
do.
Yeah.
And that's such a
know.
like also masculine way
Yes.
of how everything in our world is portrayed. So I'm just thinking now that knowing what you know now and having experienced that yourself, why do people attach their identity so much to work?
Well, I don't think we're taught how to be appreciated for us, because so many children lack the experience of being loved and seen for who they are. So then you have to search for another way to be appreciated and loved. And of course, when you achieve good things or great things, and you're a good girl, and you're nice, and you're effective, everyone's gonna praise you. So of course, that's how you get the kind of validation and love and being seen in a different way. So I think it's only that no one's really taught us to love ourselves, or how to build our self-worth in a healthy way. It's more just attached on achievement.
How to recognize when you are attaching your identity to work versus a healthy goal setting and goal achieving?
Yeah, well, I think healthy goal setting is that you're not kind of relating yourself and your self-worth to that goal, that you still feel like you're worthy even if you wouldn't achieve that goal, and not becoming that goal in a way that it's a part of you. It's just something that you want to go towards, but it doesn't change who you are or what you feel like you're worth, if you understand.
Yes, I get that. I'm just thinking of people who have that passion, which also back in the day for you it was makeup, right? How to navigate that part where it still is a passion,
Yeah.
so you want to achieve as much as you want, and you want it to be a success.
Well, yeah, actually,
Yeah.
yeah. I think one good way to look at it is how you think about the goal. Is it something that you have to achieve, or is it something that you want to achieve? I think that's different, because when it's have to, it comes from ego. It's something that I have to do because otherwise this and this and this happens, or I'm not that or that or that. But when it's something that you really want to, it's something that comes from your heart. So I think it's more a desire, or more a deeper longing, maybe more a soul
Craving.
longing, or the soul's purpose, or whatever you want to call it. But it comes from a deeper place, something that you want. I think that's probably a good way to ask yourself, where is it coming from? Because always when you have to achieve something, it comes from a deeper need that is not met, and you're kind of trying to meet those needs in unhealthy ways.
That's such a helpful question to just stop, pause
Yeah.
for a second. And
Why do I
then
have to do
ask.
this, or
Yeah.
why do I want this? Yeah.
Yes, because I'm just thinking I have a few friends who did follow their passion fully in the sports field, and it's, I think, in a way very similar to the
Yes.
fashion scene. Not the easiest fields to navigate, especially when it comes to overworking. And there as well, I feel like even though it is a passion, but the way it's been structured and the expectations that are set, it's still very hard to not lead to burnout or not lead to any health issues in that field. So
I know. Yeah. And also, I think you can burn out even if you're doing your passion. Like, you know, I always think as passion as fire, and burnout is when there's too much fire, you know, so you burn out. So I don't think burnout always needs to come from a place that is toxic or a wounded place, but it can just be that you don't know your boundaries or you're very passionate about something. So it doesn't always have to be like ego driven in a way.
that's such a good point.
Yeah.
Yes, as well, because that's very important. And I think sometimes even it might be easier to lead to burnout when you're doing the passion.
Exactly, yeah. And also for me now when I'm doing my new thing, in the beginning I have to kind of search for my boundaries and also really stick to them to not do that again, because it's easy to start to, you know, recreate that pattern.
Back to the age of 28, you experience the burnout, you have this year on coach or on sofa, as you refer to it, and then you started studying something completely different.
Yeah, I needed something to do during that time, not just, you know, lying on the couch, because after a couple of months it felt like, what am I doing with my life? So I've always had this, or when my dad died, I took a year to study, what is it called, like to be a health coach. With an online school from New York, just because I started to get interested in, you know, health and well-being and stuff like that. And there I got to know Deepak Chopra and a lot of like spiritual teachings on the side, and I got really interested in that. I think that there is where my like spiritual journey started. And then when I was really tired, I needed tools and understanding what is happening to me and what is happening in my mind. So first I thought that I'm gonna be just like a life coach, but then I found really interesting training that was called Henkinen Valmentaja. So it's kind of a spiritual life coach in a way. So something just, again, I felt this something drawing me towards that. I was looking at the life coach trainings and schools, and I was like, no, this is not it. And then I called the kind of spiritual coaching coach, and he said that there is one spot available. I want to join. And I said yes immediately, and started to study there. And it was really mind blowing because it gave me so many answers to what I'm actually experiencing and going through, and understood myself and the ego and how my belief system works, and everything just started to make sense. And then also one big thing that got me really hooked there was the first day of school. I felt like there was so much to take in, and I was really in a quite sensitive and still a tired space. So I started to get panic attack there. And I told the teacher, I think that I need to go home and rest, that this is a bit too much. And he was like, okay, you can go home, but is it okay that we do one exercise on you before you go? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like everything that works or makes me feel better is great. So then he actually did hypnosis on me. And that was like an example of exercise in front of the class. And he was doing hypnosis on me on the panic attack. And it actually stopped. And after that, the panic attacks have never come back in that way. And I was so convinced, and I was like sold, and I was like, what is this that I need to know everything about this hypnosis thing? And after that, I really dove into the mind and beliefs and how we work as human beings, and got really hooked on hypnosis, and it helped me to recover in a like extremely effective way. Of course, it can kind of speed up recovering in a way when you're tired, but it made me understand my situation and me, and change my beliefs in a way that I could cope with the whole situation a lot better. And from there started this whole journey of experiencing or trying out different kind of healing methods. I went to energy healing trainings and tarot schools and all kind of somatic body healing treatments. And yeah, it opened up a whole new world to me. Finally, I felt that uh, drive, and I'm almost tearing up because it was so big for me. It always like I found back to myself in a way. So, so it felt really good that I got that like drive and passion and being aligned again. It felt like during the last years of makeup, it was like it wasn't my way of doing things anymore. It wasn't like I had gone too far from myself in a way that it wasn't alignment in, or I didn't feel like aligning myself, and that's why I thought I also got the burnout, because I didn't listen to that calling that started when my dad died, of this health and nutrition and taking care of myself. I just went with, okay, this gives me money, this makeup, and I'm good at it, and it's what I've been always doing. Then why would I change it? My body started to kind of, take the lead for me to where I was supposed to be. So yeah.
So it's kind of like life before hypnosis and life after.
It is. And or I always think there's like there's one life before the burnout and another after. And I feel like I'm a totally different person, like in those two lives in a way. And I think what's different there is the first one is very kind of built on masculine energy, pushing and, being really driven and motivated. And I don't think that's a bad kind of quality if it doesn't go to an excess or too much. And then the later, now what I do is more like really driven by what I feel is good for me, and kind of purpose and intuition in a way.
That's beautiful. So for those who don't know, what is hypnotherapy?
Well, hypnotherapy is a form of therapy, as any other form of therapy, but I just use hypnosis as a tool to, in the therapy sessions, go through different themes that we work on. So hypnosis is basically just a state of deep concentration and relaxation. So it's something that we go through, or everyone is in hypnosis on different hours of the day. For example, right when we wake up, when we're in between being really alert and still sleepy, we're in hypnosis there. And everything we do or what do we do automatically? For example, we're driving a car and we're totally working on autopilot. And then we get there and we're like, which route did I take? That's basically hypnosis. You're really just in your own world, concentrating on your own things, and things happen automatically. That's a form of hypnosis. Or if you get really focused on a movie, for example, and really get involved in what's happening and feeling everything, and you can't really sense what's happening around you anymore. You're not really interested in what happens around you anymore. Someone can say, hey, do you want a coffee or do you want a tea? And you're not listening or hearing anymore. That's when you're in hypnosis as well. So it's nothing that is like woo or mystic or weird or unnatural in a way. It's a totally natural state that we all experience every day. We're just not aware of it. And in hypnotherapy, we use this hypnosis state to get in touch with our subconscious mind. And in the subconscious mind lies all our beliefs, our memories, our what is it called? Feelings, emotions. So when we go through those in the hypnotherapy session, those that are especially linked to the problem, usually the problem solves because the memories and the feelings and emotions usually creates beliefs, and the beliefs creates our behavior. So when we kind of go into the core and the root of the problem in your subconscious and kind of work on it there and heal it there, or redirect it in some way, then usually the problems start to disappear as well and your behavior change. So it's kind of just a deeper form of therapy.
I'm just thinking that a lot of the people think of hypnosis when it comes to addictions, for instance, getting rid of those. But from my experience with you, I feel like it's much, like there's so many more
Yeah.
place and space for hypnotherapy. So would you say probably most of the people that come to you come because something has happened, or it's also used as a tool for
Well,
self-discovery?
depends. Many come, because they try to quit smoking or addictions, yeah, or fears or phobias or stuff like that. That is really linked to hypnosis. Usually, that you get like fast results of difficult things that is difficult to change. But nowadays, I think hypnotherapy has got more common. So I get people with all kinds of problems and situations, a lot of anxiety, that they don't know where it's coming from, or sleep disorders. But then also, many clients that I have nowadays is that they've gone through many years of psychotherapy. They only talked about stuff, and they felt like they kind of, got stuck there. So they want to look at the issues deeper or get to understand the situation better or themselves better. Or then it feels like they understand what happened to them and they understand the whole situation and everything, but still they get triggered. So the feeling is still there and the root cause is kind of still there. So then they come to hypnotherapy to kind of get in touch with the root and the emotions and the feelings and kind of healing the thing on a deeper level. So that's quite common nowadays. So it feels like, or many feel like they don't want to just talk about it anymore. They understand and they're very good at logically, but then they need better tools to still work on that trauma or issue or case.
Yeah, because there's so many instances in our lives when consciously we know
Yeah.
exactly what we should be doing. We just understand logically that that does not make sense. Diets, going after that dream
Yes.
job,
Yeah.
relationships, all of the areas consciously we know, but then still we act completely differently.
Well, I always point out that our conscious mind, which make up the logic, is 5% of our mind. It's 5%. And we think we are so in charge of our life and so aware and so, in control, but it's actually 5% that we're like consciously controlling in a way. And then 95 of our mind is made of the subconscious and the unconscious mind. So of course it makes sense that it's much more powerful. So everything we have in our subconscious, it's the whole belief system, everything that has happened to us through our whole life since we were zero, a baby, is there and they're affecting us every day without us consciously knowing it. So that's where, for example, addictions come from. There is something in your subconscious that still keeps affecting you, but consciously for example, that you shouldn't be eating candy, but still you can't stop yourself because there is some really a lot deeper rooted need that is, for example, not being met. And then you're trying to meet that, with these different things, but it's actually not going to go away because it's a deeper issue that needs to be looked at. And hypnosis is a great tool for it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the times we just want to put the plaster. So even in that case of the candy, we go with the discipline that we're lacking discipline, or that we need to start doing this diet and this sort of routine. And then that kind of creates also that cycle of shame and guilt.
There's
Because,
something wrong with me because I can't.
yeah,
But I always tell everyone to look at it with compassion because it's some part of you that is not getting something that it needs. And we can't change it. We can't really change anything before we become aware of the thing. How could you change anything that you're not aware of? You can't. So you have to become first aware of the root issue, the root cause, to be able to change it. And that's how it starts to change. Otherwise, it's just kind of these surface level things that you try to do. And you try to kind of heal something, but you don't know what you're healing. So how is it ever going to heal?
yeah, that's also a very, very good topic that you touched upon, this awareness. Because now I'm thinking on my personal example, before hypnotherapy, I never even thought that I have to look that deep, Like there were things that I didn't think of doing or had fear of doing, or other parts that I'm not going to go that much into detail, but I just felt like everyone goes through that and there's nothing deeper to look at.
Yes.
So how does one realize that there's actually...
I always think that if you're happy in your life, why go dig? Like, in a way,
Mm-hmm.
enjoy your life if you're happy and good. But usually it's things that start to bother you a lot. And our subconscious mind is so smart that it always wants to get rid of the heavy stuff and the stuff that is not good for us. So at different point in our lives, there are gonna come people or situation or other stuff that is gonna trigger you, and that you start to feel frustrated or something is not working out or you are feeling bad or whatever. And of course, they are usually cues that something needs to be looked at. And usually, I always think about triggers that they are kind of like roots down to the wound that needs to be looked at. And our subconscious mind is so smart and well built that it always wants to get rid of the heavy stuff or the wounds or the stuff that is not kind of supporting us or good for us. So it kind of draws to us different situations and people and things that start to trigger us so that we are going to start to look at the wound. It's something that really wants to be healed, that we're feeling bad or we're getting triggered or different patterns keep on repeating. It's not that our mind or our body or our being wants us to suffer. It's more like it wants to be healed. So that's why I always say that if you have some issue or, addiction or whatever, look at it in a compassionate way. It's some part of you that is really longing for attention, for healing, for love, So I think that you can live with the triggers. That's one way, and try to learn to cope with them. But then another way is also to kind of look at the deeper issue, look at the deeper wound and heal that. And in that way, heal the trigger.
I'm just thinking that also there is this blessing in disguise when these things do happen to you and they do turn you to look inwards. But then there's also this very sort of quote unquote comfort zone where their triggers might be happening, but the person's just not aware whatsoever. So are there any guiding questions that one can ask to kind of realize if they are living like in alignment with themselves, or are they trying, maybe there's a shadow side of them that they're not comfortable with seeing?
A general question.
Yeah, that could, like, for a person that doesn't know whether whether they should look or not, they're kind of happy, but if they were given like this magic wand, they would change and live completely different life in a different place, doing different things.
Well, of course, one big question is always to ask, am I happy? I think that's a big question, that are you feeling good in your life? There is specific questions for, if you can, how you can find out if you're living in alignment or not, but it's more feeling. And it's more a feeling of being where you're supposed to be, being happy, feeling light, feeling inspired, feeling joy. So I always think that when we're doing the things that we're supposed to be, we're feeling joy and excitement and happiness and kind of this feeling of being content in a way. So if your life is feeling empty or unfulfilling, or you're feeling depressed or anxious, those are all signs that something is not right. It's more about how you feel and not what you kind of maybe think of. At least for me.
Yeah. I just remember, hello.
And also one thing that is really important, I think, is purpose. Like if you're living a life that you feel like has purpose.
With being aware where you are in your journey. In one of your posts, you mentioned that you've noticed in your work with hypnosis and with clients that it all essentially comes down to self-love.
A lot. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's basically what we touched upon a bit earlier, the self-worth. And usually I think that our biggest issues are usually lack of awareness and love that we haven't gotten. Because if you think about our issues, for example, the biggest fears for people are being abandoned or not being accepted. And those are basically just the absence of love and presence and being seen in a way.
So how does one know if they love themselves?
Well, One thing is because self-worth comes from you being loved the way you are. So one I think one way to look at it is like you don't attach your self-worth to outer things that much anymore. So outer things don't have that big role, or they're not as important in your life anymore that they were before, because you have the love for yourself. And of course, then self-love can show up in so many different ways. For example, you're not abandoning yourself. For example, not holding on to your boundaries, or you kind of abandoning yourself if you go through different difficult things. For example, if you're not showing up in the way that you would like yourself to show up, can you still be there for you and support you and talk in a compassionate way? Or are you beating yourself up, or talking to yourself in a really bad tone or whatever? Those are all kind of indicators of how much you love yourself. Like, you are there always for you, whatever happens. Because if we have been taught, for example, that you have to be a good girl to be loved, you have to be quiet and obedient and always helping, or whatever it means for you, and then if you don't do those things, your parents are going to get really angry, and then you're not going to get loved, so, or you're not going to get attention or whatever. But you feel like, if I'm not in this way, I'm not going to get loved. So then usually, of course, because our parents are our role models and they are kind of modeling the world to us, we kind of um, take their voices and they become our inner voices, and we start to speak in that way to ourselves as well. So if we fail or don't behave in a way that we're expecting ourselves to do, then we usually start to talk about to ourselves in the same way, like, why are you always like this, or you should know better, or whatever, like not giving ourselves the compassion and maybe support that we need instead. So if something happens, for example, that you behave in a way that you're not happy about, or kind of disappointed at yourself, I always said that you should like think about it in a way that, even though this happened, I can still love and accept myself. And that comes down to kind of you being there for you always, whatever happens, which kind of builds a huge safety for you, because someone is always there. I'm not abandoned this time.
You're human.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so self-love, it shows up in, of course, kind things we do to ourselves, taking good care of ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, boundaries, a lot of things.
And that's probably also a kind of process that is not constant, but ever evolving.
Yeah. I think it's a process that continues throughout our lives, because there's always, like in anything, when you go on a healing journey, there's always a new level.
Yes.
So I think the thing happens here with self-love, that you can always find a deeper love for yourself. Maybe first it's the mind, how you're talking to yourself. Maybe next level is your body. Maybe next level is, I don't know.
Oh, both of them together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like with journey with self-love, I feel like it's talked so much about,
Yes.
but at the end, it really is those decisions you make day to day, if they're actually aligned or not with you. Because and also because you mentioned it's also like being aware, but then 95% of our actions are unaware. We think we have so much control over
Thing. And
things.
that's what I mean with always there is a new level surfacing, that we become a bit more aware. Oh, in this part, I'm not loving myself at all. And then we go through that part and practice with that part. There is always new parts revealing. And I think that's what also makes life interesting, because it's a journey and it's not, you're not going to get to a level where, like, okay, I'm done. Then I think you don't need to be here on Earth anymore.
Yeah, then try finding another planet. But
And
yeah,
actually, we did with my colleague Hanna this self-love club. Was it 1.5 years ago? Because actually inspired on this talk that no one actually ever teaches us to love ourselves. Everybody talks about it, but what is it? So yeah, we had this for 1 month course that was 4 meetings, and I think it was super fun to have it, because I was thinking to myself that I would have needed this when I was younger.
and now you have another course coming up, right?
Yeah, it's in Finnish also, like vetovoimainen nainen. and it's Magnetic Woman, and it has a lot of this self love and inner child healing and accepting ourselves and building trust and safety within ourselves, because through safety, when we feel safe, we can expand and do bigger things and also attract different things, money, partners, friends, whatever. So it has a lot to do with self-love, but also self-worth, because that's a big thing when you try to attract things that you actually feel like you deserve them.
So the question about the self-worth
Yeah.
and self-love, what's the difference? How does it show up differently in our lives?
Well, they're really connected. When we feel loved as who we are, then we feel self-worth. Then we feel that we're worthy. They kind of can't be really existing without
One
another.
another.
But self-love is, yeah, it's more like we feel the compassion and the love and everything towards ourselves. And I think self-worth is more like we feel like we deserve, we are deserving, we are worthy.
What has the biggest impact? That's probably also childhood of
Yes,
our self-worth. Yes.
because when we feel shame, and shame is kind of the ultimate yucky feeling no one wants to feel. It's the most low vibration feeling that we have, and shame comes from always a child that hasn't been seen or loved. If a child has been really valued and loved just for who they are without them having to be in a certain way, that's when they create a really healthy self-worth and also feeling of that I am enough and I'm loved.
Yes, because a lot of times also, even if the person does go after their purpose and their dreams, the kind of the purpose for that achiever mode goes into achieving the next top of the mountain.
Yes.
And the next and the next.
Yes.
And it just
it's
never
always
feels
like,
enough.
then I will be enough, or then I have done enough. And the thing is, when you're trying to get it from outside, it's never enough, because you will always need the next fix or the next big thing to achieve to get that relief. Oh, okay, I can do this. I'm enough. That's the way to get burnout. So the better way is to kind of start to build the feeling of being enough from inside, and you don't need to achieve things. There is the thing that I don't have to and I want to, because when you're already enough, you don't have to achieve things, but it comes more from the heart space that I want to. I want to do this for me. I want to express myself. I want to try new things. I want to see where this can take me. I want to experience more. Not that I have to, because I have to feel worthy.
So there's the lack of self-worth that can be kind of a blocker
Yeah.
before going after your dreams. What other things are usually stopping people? Or I also have noticed that sometimes people just don't allow themselves to even look in that direction.
Yeah. Well, everything that you've been taught from your parents, from your caregivers, or kindergarten, even society is blocking you, because that's beliefs that keeping you from growing in a way. And one thing that I'm talking about a lot in this course that I'm gonna do is safety. Safety is, it's kind of fun in that way, or interesting in that way, that what we think is safe is always something that we feel is familiar. So it doesn't even need to be a good thing. It just needs to be familiar. So when we try to expand and grow, if it doesn't feel familiar to us, the new thing, our whole system is going to say, this is dangerous. Don't go there. So the more safety you can feel in yourself and in your life, and also this is where hypnosis come in. I always put people to imagine they're already there, like, really getting into experience like it would be happening now, because then you make that new thing familiar, and then it becomes safe. So beliefs limit us, lack of safety, um, lack of guidance, also self-confidence, many things, but I think one of the biggest things are safety, because many feel that they are not deserving, but that is also a limiting belief. So it goes kind of during under the topic of beliefs.
So they're kind of all interconnected at the end of the day. But with safety zones and what feels safe to you, I feel like it's also very connected to confidence.
Yes.
And what was the learning stone for me with confidence was that confidence is not being confident at something. It's actually being confident at also doing things you're going to fail at or not going to be comfortable at first. So how does one go about confidence in general? Like, where does the lack of confidence come from? Let's maybe start with that.
Well, lack of confidence, what I feel myself is that you also had lack of support. When you're young, you, of course, you build up the whole sense of how the world works and everything. And if you're not being supported, you can grow into a really strong kid, but not being confident on the inside. It's more like you have to survive in a way, but not being supported. And even if you look at kids, those who have supporting parents, they know they can go back to the parent and get the safety and get the support. They are the children who run the furthest away from their parents. So I think that's a really symbolic, way of looking at it, that those kids that don't have the safety, they don't run far away because they don't have the courage. And those kids that have the support and, the place where they can always go and feel safe and kind of supported, they have the confidence to run further away and explore, more. But then I also think confidence comes from knowing oneself, because if you don't know yourself, how can you trust yourself? And trusting yourself, it has a lot to do with how you deal with your own feelings and emotions, have safety for what comes up. So confidence is a lot about also beliefs, what you've been taught that you can do and stuff like this, but then also how you handle your inner world, emotions and everything that rises up. Because if you're, for example, afraid of your feelings, then you're afraid of doing difficult things because you can't handle what's arising. So that's also has to do with safety, kind of an inner safety.
And then it can probably end in two scenarios, either complete procrastination or then going into that full achiever mode and not meeting in the middle.
Yes, some kind of like middle ground would be good.
That also reminds me of, I remember when one of the first times that I went to your session, and I asked you about the times when you work, and you said you have 4 days a week that you do.
Yeah.
So can you talk maybe a bit more about how you manage your business? What's your approach to it now?
Nowadays, it's where would I even begin? Well, in the beginning, it was a lot just to, for first of all, sense how much I could work after the burnout. So it was a lot about me getting in touch with my boundaries and what's like okay for my energy levels back then. So I had to really, really learn what is enough and how much can I do and not overworking myself. And of course, after a burnout, when you practice that thing, it many times I was exhausted and I was like, how can I be here again? Then I found some kind of balance, and nowadays I really value like my own energy, and I've been like burning myself out so badly that I never want to go back there again. So I practice and also gain so much self-worth, and also probably trust that I put myself first. Like my well-being is the most important thing now. And that's why I'm really strict with my working hours and when I take clients, because I know myself that if I start to kind of be like, okay, I can take one here and one client there and maybe one on the weekends, then I know that I'm going to be tired. So it's kind of just come to practice and doing my work to notice how many person or clients I can take a week to know that I'm able to enjoy my weekend and have energy and have something to give for my clients as well. And one of the main things that I think is that me as an entrepreneur, especially when you're doing these kind of more like spiritual and energetic things, I need to really take care of my energy and myself to be able to give something, because I am my company, I am my business. And if I'm worn out and I'm not, shining or emanating this certain kind of energy, I think it shows. And people who come to me, they're quite sensitive as well. So at least for me, I always pick my healers or my mentors or my therapists based on how they make me feel and what kind of vibe I get. I want to do the same thing and kind of yeah, so taking care of myself is kind of for me now such a big priority because I know if I'm not working, my company is not working.
It has
So
a very
it's kind of,
direct impact.
yeah, so
Mhm.
it's kind of not something that I can pass on.
So putting very kind of boundaries on what feels so that you feel good,
Yeah.
that's one thing. Is there any other way that if you look back at how you were at the age of 20 to 28 and how you would manage the business that you have now and how you manage it now?
Well, the difference is before it came from it came from a lack of self-worth and self-trust and a very masculine way. It was just like pushing, I can do anything. It doesn't matter how I feel or how much I feel like I can do. It's just like more money, more work. I have to achieve bigger things and do great things and all the time, do. And now it's more like, of course, I want to achieve bigger things or make money, but that's not the main purpose of this thing. It's more like me being able to do what I actually love. And it's me being able to give forward something that has given my life so much meaning and so much well being and kind of sharing something that is super important for me. So it's more, I feel like it's a more feminine way. Now it's more for me, it's a lot of intuitive decision making and really tuning into what feels right for me and then going from there. And I've turned down big opportunities that I felt like I wasn't feeling that they were the right match for me. And sometimes my logic mind is like, what are you doing? And then other part of me, when I go into my heart and feel I was like, this is the right thing for me. So it's a different place to come from,
Yeah.
to work from.
Yeah, that's a very kind of feminine approach. And I feel like also considering our nature, our cycles, taking that into consideration, it's very, very difficult to constantly lead from masculine
And
energy.
that's why I burned out, because I was working basically 90% of my masculine, and I'm a feminine core. So now I feel like I'm doing so much better when I'm living in a more feminine energy. It suits me better.
Of course. I was just listening to an interview with Mel. What was her name now? I forgot. A feminine coach as well, feminine
I know
empowerment.
her. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And she was also talking about how because we don't know better, because we are in this patriarchal society, feminine is kind of looked at as the weak way or this irresponsible way, even because you're following the lazy way. Yes, whereas it's so powerful way.
And I think one really beautiful way also to demonstrate feminine power is like the cycles that we go through are that powerful that they can actually bring a new life to earth. If you think about it, a woman have to wait for 9 months before they can actually give birth and bring life to earth. So that kind of demonstrates the power of the cyclical living in a way that you have to kind of go inwards and wait and gain that power and momentum, and then you can actually do something that is that great. You can like create new life. It's not something that is weak or that you should kind of look down at. It's something that should be appreciated and valued and respected. And I think the same way for the feminine, like women working in the feminine ways, like it's cyclical, that we can't go non-stop, that it has to be pauses in between when we gain energy and collect our energy and maybe go inwards and listen. Like, the menstrual cycle, it has different, we are really, really energetic at some point of the month, and the other month we're really drawn inwards and, tired and drained. And it's there for a reason, not because we are weaker, it's because it's our way to work.
Yes, and even that part, the menstrual cycle, is also looked at as the weak point, even by us women ourselves. Like, oh no, we have the period again.
Yeah, and she's tired and she's
Yeah.
grumpy and whatever. But that's just because the whole feminine energy is so kind of pushed down. Even us talking about this now is kind of already so great because you can see that there is this women empowerment happening at the moment. And that's also why I wanted to do this magnetic woman course, because it has a lot to do with that. How to work in your feminine way and still do great things, that you don't have to do it from a masculine forcing and pushing and non-stop doing. There is other ways to do it, like work as well.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful, because I feel like that part, the education of how to do it, so that it doesn't feel weak to you, it doesn't feel lazy to you, and it doesn't feel like you're being irresponsible, trusting your intuition.
And what I always point out with my clients is that everyone works in their own way. We all have a unique energy, and we all have unique strengths and way of working. So we're so used to comparing ourselves to other people, that this is the way I should work, or this is the way I should do. And I think the best thing is that you work the best way that suits for you. If you can manage working 1 day a week, that's fine. If it's for you, if you're best working 5 or 7, it doesn't matter. Do you. That is what is, when you're aligned with you and your truth and your energy, that's when you are the most powerful. And we forget that because we compare so much. How should I be? Or is this allowed? There's also one big thing, that we don't allow ourselves to actually really listen what is working best for me.
That's also true. Yes, this awareness, inwardly awareness of
And
what's
that's also
making
the feminine, to listen to the guidance that comes from inside. And we're not really allowed to do that, or haven't been, because the logic, which is the masculine side, is so leading in the society at the moment, that you always have to kind of have a very good reason to do things, when the very good reason is that I feel this way.
And sometimes that feeling is so strong, and yet still the logical mind says,
no. I know.
Yeah. But now tying the feminine energy to the work of hypnosis. Is there something in hypnosis that you can also do in terms of the feminine, reawakening the feminine energy?
Yeah, of course. You can go and investigate how it is, and also work on everything that we talked about. What is the best way to work for you, and self-trust, because it all comes down to that I can be me, I can do my own way, and having the courage to do that. And then also in hypnosis, we can go and try out how would it feel to work in that way, because usually if we don't have an experience of something, we don't know what it is. We don't even know what could it be. So when we get an experience of something, like how could it feel to work in a feminine way or more feminine way, or how would it look like? What would I think when I'm doing this in a feminine way? When you go into hypnosis and we practice that, then you can start to do it in your daily life as well. Get that feeling like, oh, okay, this is it. Because if you don't have, for example, your mother has been really, an overachiever and doer and more in her masculine, you probably don't have a role model. How is women even working? What does it look like? What does it feel like? So you can go and do that. But then I also want to point out that feminine and masculine is not separate. We have them in our growth, and they're supposed to be in a balance and working together. So not kind of demonizing the masculine energy, because we need that as well. Otherwise, if we would only be in our feminine, we would just be not getting
Flying, flowing.
I'm just here reading my tarot cards every day and nothing's happening. So we also need that fire and drive to get things done, but to have them in a perfect balance for you. What is the perfect balance inside of you with these energies, so that you can be your best self.
That's beautiful. I like how you combined it all together. If we go back to what hypnosis is, I think that there's this misconception for people who haven't done it, that you go into this state where you can be controlled, and from the 1980s movies.
Exactly. Yeah, and still in movies.
It's actually still, yeah.
Get Out is one hypnosis movies when they control everyone, but that's not something that happens in hypnotherapy, and so you don't need to be worried about that. In every hypnosis session that I do, and every hypnosis that you do for yourself, is always self-hypnosis. I'm not controlling you. I'm not getting into your mind. If you don't want to tell me anything during the session, that's fine. But it's always you who is in charge. So it's not me doing anything to you or taking control. It's you. And For example, I do a lot of that you have to imagine things and get that way into the subconscious. If you stop imagining, the hypnosis stops. Or if you want to open your eyes and come back to normal day awareness, you can do it anytime. So it's not me forcing you to do anything. It's you who want to do it. And I always ask in the beginning of the sessions that, is it okay that we start working? You want to work with me? Give your permission to me to lead you, but you are doing the work. So it's not me controlling you in any way.
And it's also actually a very active work. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot happening.
It is. And that's why you are tired after the sessions, because it's not me doing it. You are doing it yourself and working on the issue yourself. I'm just basically guiding you.
Yes, and also the exercises that you do with your subconscious and seeing them, because your conscious is also at present.
Exactly.
So your conscious kind of sees what is happening, and it's also a bit mind-blowing at times, like how powerful you actually can be if you're guided.
Yeah, yeah. And then when you are guided, you can start to use the practices on yourself as well when you're at home, in a way that you are more aware of things. I don't know if you had that experience, but yeah,
for sure.
So you become aware of yourself in a totally different way.
And the more you go into it, the more things just start looking completely different. But right, so how can people find you?
They can find me on my website, marinalavenius.com, Instagram Marina Lavenius. And yeah, there is all my services. There is links where you can book appointments. And then on Instagram, I'm always sharing my thoughts and yeah, what's going on at the moment.
And then starting from January, your new course starts. Yes.
Yeah. That's January 9th. I'm supposed to start this new course, Magnetic Woman. So that is also now available on my website. So if someone's interested, they can go and read about it there.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your story. This world is so fascinating of hypnotherapy and kind of how you found yourself to it as well. So thank you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.